Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RGVSports.com podcast. I'm your host. My name is John LaFollette, and I cover high school sports for the Monitor newspaper in McAllen and for RGVSports.com for the world at large. If you're listening to this on the podcast or watching on the Periscope and or YouTube, you already know what it is. We are recapping RGV Week 6. More than half the season is already gone. We've only got
flew by.
It's flown by. We've only got 5 regular season games left, and then the playoffs start. Before we get to Week 7, we got to look back and talk about Week 6. Greg Luca's with me as always. He is covers 36A, I should say. He's on the Trevor Spates beat,
absolutely,
as it were. But you didn't cover Trevor Spates this week. You covered Mission versus LaFollette at Palmview.
Mission Palmview, which we'll certainly get to.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But before we do that, let's briefly touch on the game of the week that was big for us in the Monitor. It was who was it? It was Vela versus Roma. Vela versus Roma. That was hyped up because you had 2 undefeated teams. Roma had one of the better offenses in the Valley. Vela came in with one of the better offenses, I should say. Did I say that right? Did I say Roma had the better defenses?
You meant to say Roma.
I meant to say, yeah. Roma, had the better defense. Vela had the better offense. What was going to win out? We all chose Vela. It seemed like it was going to be an easy one for Vela. Not to say that it was easy. They only scored 28 points. This is the first time they've been held below 30 all season long. But we'll see how. Anyway, let's get into this. Mario covered this game. He covers 31.58. He's not here right now. But just based on what he wrote, for RGVSports.com and the Monitor, it looks like it was just the Robert Geddes show. He had all 4 of their touchdowns, ran the ball well. That's all they did. And Roma, they suffered an injury with Ramon Espinosa, their go-to guy there. And it seems like that pretty much was a big struggle for them the rest of the way.
I think Ramon Espinosa is probably the biggest takeaway from this game.
Right.
He had 1 carry for 6 yards, and this is a guy that was averaging 40-ish carries and up over 200 yards a game, and was doing a great job with that, and was really carrying their offense. Just their ball control style really relies on having a back like that who can have that many carries and just take a pounding game to game. And we wondered if it would catch up to him and if he would either A, slow down, or B, get hurt, and we saw the second one take place here. No word yet on how long he's going to be out. Mario said he was on the sidelines in a sling, so that's not necessarily promising, but that could mean any number of things. So if he's going to be out for any significant amount of time, that's going to be a big loss for them, and that's really going to hurt their ability to make the playoffs and have a real push in this tough district.
Right.
But for this game, I think in terms of the Vela side, you saw probably about what you expected. Instead of this really passing offense, it seemed like they did have some success on the ground, like you said, with Robert Guerra. So 4 touchdowns for him, 117 yards, and that's really the extent of their offense, that they didn't throw for that many compared to usual. So again, it was just a pretty good showing for Vela, about what we would have expected. The Roma defense comes out looking okay, but the team overall is a concern given where Espinosa stands.
Right, and Vela does get the big win, 28-7 here, but you look at just the total yardage. Vela was held below 300, and they're used to putting up 450 plus yards and scoring as many points as they want. So when you kind of contextualize things here, Roma's defense played pretty well, but it's hard to kind of gauge where Roma's at right now, like you said, because Ramon Espinosa's hurt. We've seen him in a sling. No word on whether or not he's going to be ready next week or anytime soon. So that's big for them. Like you said, they need a guy like him if they want to be where they're at. And I forget who Roma plays next week, but is it Pioneer? Or do they have a bye next week? Let me see. Let's look who Roma plays next week while we're talking here.
Well, Mario said he emailed us some notes from the game, so now I'm going to pull those up, and then we can talk about those at present. But again, it's just I'm worried about Roma a little bit. I just think.
Why so?
You talk about their defense, and I think one of the things that made them as strong as they've been is the fact that they were able to control the ball so heavily on the ground with Espinosa. And
they have Mission Vets next week. Mission Vets.
See, that's a tough. There's no easy ones for them in the next 2 weeks because they got Sharyland after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, you need him at 100% right now. Because even if you come out of those 2 games with losses, then even if you can beat Pioneer and Valley View the last 2 weeks of the season, you're still in trouble. So Mario says Roma tried to establish a passing game, but it didn't really work out. The 4th quarter TD was a passing TD, and it was only their 2nd of the year.
Which makes sense because Ramon Espinosa wasn't there. So
right. I guess Mario says that he was impressed a little bit with Rene Ramirez, their backup running back. He had a couple of good runs, so maybe that's a little bit of hope, along with Brian Garcia, to try to provide some offense for Roma, even without Espinosa. But I just think it's going to be tough, man. And then as far as Vela goes, Mario notes that Robert Guerra also fumbled twice with the 4 touchdowns, so not a perfect game from him, but still a pretty strong showing. and they had 100 yards of penalties in the first half alone. And one of the things that we talked about last week, Elijah Reyna did some good work in the return game. So last week it was Johnny Davila for them, and this week it's Elijah Reyna. And I guess they can. It's kind of silly, but on top of having an outstanding offense, they're going to get some production in the return game too.
Right. With Vela, like I said, it seems like business as usual. Yes, they score not as many points as we're accustomed to seeing from them. Their offense wasn't quite as potent. A win's a win, and Roma, has a good defense. Holding a team like Vela that scored 70 points twice, and they get more than 400 yards to hold below 30, keep them at 28 points. Maybe if Ramon Espinosa stays healthy, doesn't go down the first quarter, this is a totally different ball game. But all things considered, Vela's about where we thought we'd be. Just more question marks for Roma. We're not going to see really where they're at until we get further word on Ramon Espinosa in these next 2 weeks when they play Mission Vets and Sherryland.
And one last thing I want to touch on, just because we got a Periscope comment on this. Roma says there was a pass. Mario says Roma had a pass touchdown to Damian Villarreal called back. The officials apparently said he didn't catch it, but the replays showed that he did. And one of the commentators on the Periscope said that was a terrible call that they thought as well, and that they thought it should have been a touchdown for Roma. So just one thing worth noting there, that maybe even without Espinosa, the score could have been a little bit better than the final score indicated. But
all of you Big Ten football fans, Ohio State beats Indiana, and the only reason I care about this game is because I'm from Indiana. I don't really follow IU football. They're kind of a doormat in there. IU is a basketball school, but anyways.
Hey, and in good news, Florida's up 2 touchdowns on Ole Miss already.
No one cares about Florida. JK, good props to Florida. I guess.
It's the number 3 team.
You're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan now because they got your boy
Billy Donovan. Yeah,
because Billy Donovan's their coach now. So
who couldn't love Billy?
And I also have tabs on Pacers preseason game.
Don't even mention that.
They're playing the Pelicans. No, I'm going to mention it because it's the NBA. It's the
NBA preseason.
The NBA is the best of the 4. Greg. The NBA is the best of the big 4 of the NFL, baseball, and hockey. The NBA is by far and away the best.
Okay,
is it not?
That's your opinion.
Stop it. It's not even close. Basketball, ball is life, Greg. Ball is life. But anyway,
even preseason.
Yes, of course it is. Anyway, I would rather watch NBA preseason over college football any day.
Well, that's just an Indiana guy.
Anyways, back to football. Back to high school football.
Yes, it should have been.
Back to high school football here. What we're going to talk about next?
Which game do we think we want to go to next? Which one?
Well, let's talk about Sherryland Mission Vets because Dennis covered that one. Mission Vets, hung with Sherryland. This was another sloppy game. It looks like so. Sherryland gets to win 29-27. It looks like just like it came down to between Sherryland and Vela. It was another close game that came down in the fourth quarter. Mission Vets was driving and they threw an interception. There was some kind of turnover. Sherryland gets the win. They're unscathed. Not unscathed because they lost to Vela, but they're 1-1. Looks like they're still in the thick of things in this district in terms of the playoff picture. What do you take away from this game?
Well, I came away from their last couple of games that I saw really impressed with Seth Carter, and I know Mario wrote a feature on him, the Sherryland quarterback, this week. He did not kind of have his typical game in this one. Completed less than 50% of his passes, even though he eventually got to 248 yards, but also threw 2 interceptions to go with the touchdown, and ran only for 41 yards and a touchdown. So coming down the final drive where Sherryland needed a score to get it, they scored with 2:17 left to take the lead and eventually win the game as a result of that. It was Monty Campos who was leading the offense, and he ended up running for 106 yards and a score in this game. So I was really impressed to hear that somebody other than Seth Carter was really moving the ball for them, because in the game against Edinburgh Vela, it looked like he was the guy that was going to be providing the majority of their offense for the whole year. So they have other options that they can go to when Seth Carter's not at 100% or has a little bit of an off night, which is really impressive for them because they were dynamic and pretty dangerous as it is. On the Mission Vets side, only ran for 28 yards if Dennis's stats here are accurate, so that's something that's a little bit of a concern, but they had some success through the air with 353 passing yards. Diego Hernandez is a guy we talked about a lot. He's had a couple of 5-touchdown games already,
right?
And this had 4 more in this one.
And rushing isn't really necessarily their strong suit, so they do what they do best, and that's airing out with Diego Hernandez and those receivers they have. So.
Like we talked about with Vela, they got some great receivers: Bobby Tovar, Adam Solis, Roman De Leon, all great players for Mission Vets. So I don't know. I was really surprised to see that this game was as close as it was, because I thought that we had talked about, your thing to say is that Mission Vets is a B-list Valley team.
I think that they're B-list Valley team. They're good, but they're not. They don't really wow me with a lot of things. But again, they're still a playoff team. I don't think they're a bad team.
Yeah, I should note,
in the context of that district.
I should note we got a comment on Periscope, and Seth Carter had a 77-yard kick return for a touchdown. So still obviously contributing.
He's still a party starter in special teams at least this week. So.
Absolutely, but again, my thinking that Sharyland was one of the elite teams and kind of thinking that Mission Vets was one of the B teams, those lines have blurred a little bit as a result of this.
Yeah, sure.
Just because they were able to play them so close.
Right, and Mission Vets, you expect Mission Vets to play this game closely because they had 2 weeks to prepare for it. They had a bye last week, so they had all that time to scheme for Sharyland. And it just came down to one guy making a big play for Sharyland, and that was all the difference.
Especially Sharyland coming off a really emotional loss where they were really, really close, right?
They're one fumble away from possibly being 2-0 in this district, and then they look like they're in the driver's seat. So,
right.
But anyways, we both think that both these teams are still playoff teams, is barring catastrophic.
I mean, especially now that Roma's a little questionable. Yeah, these guys all look. The three at the top look pretty safe at this point.
Yeah, certainly.
Although some people who shall remain nameless would tell you to watch out for Sharyland Pioneer.
Yeah,
they got a 20-10 win against Rio Grande Valley.
Pioneer's undefeated, but their first 2 district games are against Valley View, Rio Grande City, some games that you probably pencil in as a win for them. And now they got the gauntlet from here on out. They got Roma, they got Sharyland High, Mission Vets, and Vela. I'm not sure if that's the actual order of the schedule, but that's who they got to play these next 4 weeks.
Do you think they'll be competitive in those games, or do you think they're going to have?
Well, they play Vela next week on Thursday. I think Vela does a pretty good job. And see, here's the thing. Roma's defense has been touted because they've played some quality competition. Pioneer's defense has been touted, but at the same time, props to them for a second-year program to taking some steps and beating some teams they should beat. But when you look at who they've played teams like La Feria, Hidalgo, there's some 4A schools. They beat Porter or Pace, one of the other 32 5A Brownsville schools, which are struggling this year. I saw a stat for Sharyland Pioneer. Their opponents have a combined record of 9-19. So they haven't really played that strong competition, so it's kind of hard to gauge where they're at. Like, are those numbers just kind of inflated because they played competition that really isn't at their level, or But they play Vela. I think we're all going to pick Vela in this game. But like I said against Roma, if you can limit, if Pioneer's defense limits Vela to 28 points and less than 300 yards like Roma did, then I'm not a skeptic anymore. Sure, credit to Pioneer. I still don't think. I think in these next 4 games, they go 1-3 at best. I think they're going to lose these next 4.
Well, part of the thing...
The Roma game they can win. It all depends on Ramon Espinosa if he's healthy or not. But by and large, I think they go 0-4 the rest of the way.
Part of the thinking for me is that we see them kind of take care of business here against Rio Grande City, and Rio Grande City is not a bad team.
But did they really take care of business though? Like, they won by 10. I know that game's close because I know those games are close because they run the ball a lot. But they were tired at halftime. It wasn't like to me taking care of business means they run the table. They didn't run the table in this game.
Well, they're not supposed to blow out Rio Grande City, right? Like, not a lot of teams in this district are going to blow out Rio Grande City. I think Vela probably might, but they didn't last year.
Right.
And Mission Vets could, and Sharyland High could, but those teams could also easily beat Rio Grande City 20-10, right? So I think that we don't know that Pioneer's good because of who they've played, but we also don't know that Pioneer's not good because of who they played. So a lot of it is just kind of a wait-and-see thing. We'll certainly learn a lot. I don't know if I would say that they're going to go 0-4, but I don't know that they're ready to beat a Mission Vets, a Sharyland High.
No. And again, I'm not trying to say Pioneer's a bad team. I'm just saying let's take their undefeated record, put it in perspective, and look at what they've got coming up, and let's see how this really works.
Yeah, but again, I think it's fair to say that they compete with Roma for the 4th seed, I think.
Yeah, that's not out of the question. So, but again, that all comes down to Ramon Espinosa, whether or not he's healthy or not. And
I agree as well.
So we'll see how that plays out. In 32 6A, there's a close game on that side. Los Fresnos, San Benito. Low-scoring game, and it was close nonetheless. It was 14-7 in favor of Los Fresnos. It seems like Los Fresnos' defense was the story in that game. So props to them. Again, that's not our coverage area. I'm not too familiar with those teams. We should touch on that game because there's 2 top 10 teams going against each other. Props to Los Fresnos for getting the win there. So.
Right. I was thinking that this game would be turned into more of a shootout. I would have thought that San Benito would have been able to get something going more so on offense because I just have been really impressed with them and what they've shown at times this season. But again, Los Fresnos did a decent job of keeping them under wraps offensively. They had just 112 passing yards and 159 rushing yards for the game. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's Los Fresnos. For San Benito, they had 136 passing and 155 rushing. I just would have thought they would be ahead of both of those numbers, especially the rushing, because I've been impressed with how their option game works with J.R. Gaitan there. But again, they held Edward Alvarez, the running back, there to just 5 carries for 8 yards. I think the Los Fresnos defense is pretty legit.
Yeah, Los Fresnos defense is really, really good.
Their offense certainly isn't too bad either. So that's a team that I think has solidified their standing near the top of our near the top of our ranks, and deserves to stay there until they get knocked off.
Yep, absolutely. Let's get to the game you covered. Let's get to touch on your district for a bit here. 36.
Hell yeah, Ricky 956, you ready?
You met Ricky 956
I know,
at this game. He plays for Palmview. You met him there. Before we get to your encounter with Ricky 956, tell us about this game. You were skeptical about both of these teams kind of coming into it.
I really was.
Palmview gets the win. What was the score? 35-21 in favor of Palmview. What do you take away from this game?
Well, we had seen Palmview coming off back-to-back losses to Rio Grande City and Roma, and with a bye week in there too. So we hadn't seen them in a couple of weeks, and when we did, they were getting beat by teams that we didn't know if they were the kind of teams that Palmview should be losing to if we want to consider Palmview one of the top teams in this district. But on Friday they came out and they just looked as solid as I needed to see them be. And as Ricky 956 is saying in our little chat right now, they proved me wrong a little bit.
Yeah, you're the only one that picked Mission to win. Everybody was on Palmview's bandwagon.
I was thinking about Mission's defense, and as soon as I saw the game, I realized why I was wrong. And it's because Mission High's defense is a little bit undersized for as good as they are. And Palmview's offensive line, featuring Ricky 956 and some of these other guys who have just done a lot of mauling this year, are just so much bigger and stronger than that group up front. And we saw all night that they were able to push them around. One of the things that I thought was really telling was, you talk to the coach of Palmview, Margarito Requeñas, and he says, a lot of credit goes to the offensive line. And you talk to Joe Alpina, the running back, who had, I have the numbers here, an insane amount of rushing, both career highs for him. It was 283 yards and 5 touchdowns by my stats. So, and he credits the offensive line, which is like, yeah, of course, the running backs always credit the offensive line. But one thing that really shocked me was when I went and talked to Coach Mario Pena of Mission, and I tried to bring up Pena and the backs and what they did, and he was like, yeah, whatever, but like this offensive line is really good, and he called them the best offensive line they've faced this year. And I don't know where they rank in terms of the Valley, but they have to be right up there just because of what they can do in terms of opening these running lanes for these guys, where it's like I said in that game against Roma that I felt like Pena kind of got what was blocked for him. He did that this game as well, and this game what was blocked for him was 280-something yards because they had open holes all night.
Now, Palmview was a team that we're still getting to Ricky 956 here in a minute, but Palmview was a team that, started out hot. They were blowing out teams. They beat Lopez 53-7, and they beat Southwest 50-26, and they lose by 1 to Rio Grande City. That really took the wind out of your sails, for at least in terms of Palmview. Next week, they get blown out by Roma, which you thought would happen. So this Mission game, it breaks a 2-game skid. They look like the team, at least in terms of running the ball, look like they were the team that we thought they were at the beginning of the season. Does it, at least in how you kind of interpret Palmview, are they kind of more of a stabilized team now to you?
Right.
They were never out of the playoffs for you, were they? I mean, are they still?
No, they were right now, team. And we'll get to why a little bit later. I think they're clearly number 2 in the district at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of I don't know how many. If Mission can't stop them from doing this, then I don't know who in the district can. Even McAllen Memorial, one of the elite teams, doesn't have a defensive line or a defensive front. They have some good players, but they haven't proven defensively that they can stop a good running game.
Right.
And they're certainly going to see that in this kind of a thing. So I think whoever Palmview goes up against, they'll have some success running the ball. The question is going to be the defense, and that group looked pretty good yesterday against the Mission High offense. That's been a little bit up and down, but again, I really thought Mission would score about as much as they did, but I thought that Palmview's offense would not have the kind of production they had, and they really just ran all over these guys. It was like 464 rushing yards.
Yeah, and Mission defense has been highly touted.
Right.
Now, did they get any turnovers in this game, Mission's defense? Because I know that they've been getting a slew of those throughout the season.
There was the one fumble lost, and that was it.
That was it?
It's hard to get interceptions when Palmview goes 1 of 2 passing for 4 yards. So that's not going to lead to too many takeaways that way. And that was just a testament to how well they could run the ball. That they didn't have to pass at all in the second half. They didn't attempt a single one, and they just ran all over them.
Looking at Palmview's schedule, their next 3, I don't want to say they're gimmies, but they're against teams that don't have Memorial or Mac High in their name.
Well, you got
La Jolla High, which could be a deceptive game.
Again, we're going to get to that.
And then we'll talk about that next week. And then they got at McAllen Row, and then they got Juarez Lincoln. But then in the last 2, you got Memorial and you got Mac High.
Right.
And the Mac High game, that's on November 5th. That's in La Jolla. That could be huge in terms of playoff seeding.
I just am going to have no idea what McAllen High is going to look like at this point because I have no idea what McAllen High is going to look like next week.
Right. Before we segue, I should say, into Mac High. Tell everyone about how you met
Do you
Ricky
wanna have the story
956.
about
I
Ricky
want to know
956?
how you met Ricky 956.
Right. Well, as soon as again, watching the game, I knew I had to talk to somebody from the offensive line, right? So I know that one of the guys who I believe is a senior captain for them, they're all seniors, but I know Arturo Gutierrez was one of the names I heard about in the preseason. So I wanted to talk to him, and then with a couple minutes left in the game, he gets called for a holding penalty and starts like screaming at the ref and gets kicked out of the game. So I'm like, nope, not going to talk to that kid. That's not happening. So then there was another kid that I was looking for, Mario Hinojosa, and he was kind of limping around a little bit. And so I was like, I don't know if this guy even played 100% of the snaps because he would seem like he had a little ankle or something going on there.
Right.
So then I was talking to one of the coaches, and I was like, I need another guy. You know, who am I going to talk to? Who's been one of your standouts? Who's one of the best? And the coach immediately pointed me to this kid over here, Ricky. And I said, oh, okay, I'll talk to him. And I give him the standard, like, hey, this is Greg Luca with the monitor. How you doing? He's like, yeah, I already know who you are. Oh, it's you.
If we had an RGVSports.com Periscope T-shirt,
Right.
I would totally give one to Ricky 956.
That would be outstanding. But yeah, it was a good interview.
Like,
It was very helpful.
What's Ricky's last name?
Espinoza.
Ricky Espinosa. Like, Ricky, get your name changed to Ricky 956.
Yes.
Please make that your thing.
That
That's
would be
great.
outstanding.
Props to Ricky 956 and the Lobos for getting that win. That was a big one for them. And we look forward to seeing Palmview at least when they play Mac High later in the season. But let's talk about Mac High.
Oh,
They looked shaky. They beat Mission High last week, but it was a shaky 10-point win because they had to score 22 points in the fourth quarter to get that win.
Right.
And then they follow that up with another shaky performance against La Jolla High. They end up losing by a score of 22-18. What do you make of this team? I mean, they were supposed to be the number 2 team in this district. They were supposed to be, aside from Memorial, they were supposed to be, I don't want to say world beaters, but look like a really good team. And it's just every week, it's just kind of this sloppy, uneven thing. What do you make of Mac High right now?
So coming into the game, La Jolla High had lost their previous 3 games by a combined 128 points. So more than 40 a game. And yes, against Vela and against McAllen Memorial and against Westico East.
Yeah.
So against good teams. But still, if you're getting blown out like that, I didn't think necessarily that they would be able to, that Mac High would have too much trouble with them, despite some of the problems that Mac High has had this year. But La Jolla High apparently got some guys back from injury in this game, some people they'd been missing since that Bella game. And I guess that was enough. They still averaged not even 4 yards per play, or right about there on offense. But when I talked to Coach Espinoza after the game for La Jolla High about how they kept McAllen under wraps with their defense, he said it was basically a one-man show with Josh McGowan over there. That was about the terminology that he used, which is rare to hear. But man, I think that tells you a lot about where this team is at, and that if he's not going at 100%, and I don't know, I haven't seen his stats from this game, but I know he had an 80-yard touchdown, so that's not a bad start.
Right.
That they really rely on him to get anything going offensively, and we saw that against Mission, and apparently we saw that here. And I don't know that these are the elite defenses either. Like, Mission's probably one of the best in the district, although we saw that Palmview didn't struggle too much to move the ball on the ground against them.
Right.
And La Jolla High was pretty good last year and could be pretty strong now that they have their pieces back. But I don't think that these units should be shutting you down like this. Like, Caleb Youngblood in the passing game, we thought coming into the year that this wasn't going to be too much of a drop-off from last year because he had some experience and because he has the tools to really play at a high level and to keep that going. But for whatever reason, the passing game has just not always been there. And again, I haven't seen the stats from this game, so I don't know if that's exactly how this one played out or not. But just going off what Espinoza was telling me, that McAllen High had, maybe 40 yards in the second half, he said?
Man.
I don't know what to make of this team now. And I think that's why, what I alluded to earlier, that Palmview is number 2 in the district behind McAllen Memorial.
Right, and that makes sense because we know what Memorial is, or the Trevor Spates show.
Right.
And we know what Palmview is. They're just going to run the ball down your throat if the matchup's favorable
It's
to
called
them.
the O-line show.
Yeah, it's called the O-line show.
Right.
It's called the Ricky 956 and Friends show.
Yeah.
But then with Mac High, we thought it was going to be the Josh McGowan show, and it seems like it is, but to a certain point because the defense just hones in on them and nothing else really works.
And with McAllen High's
You can say
defense,
that Memorial's, one-dimensional in terms of their offensive attack, but Trevor Spates is a transcendent talent, at least in terms of the Valley, and also they've got guys that can beat you with the pass. I mean, it's not like they just have Trevor Spates on the team, so they run the ball.
Yeah,
all
but
the
they
time.
can get it to DJ Johnson.
Yeah, they get to DJ
action
Johnson.
or
They've got
whatever.
guys on that team aside from them that can beat you, but with Mac High, it seems like it's McGowan and no one else right now.
Yeah,
and that defense can't get stopped either. It's not like La Jolla High is a really good offense, and they scored 22 points.
Right. And again, they had to really grind out that yardage, and it wasn't always easy for them. And like I said, on a per-play basis, Mac High's defense looked fine. But against all these other teams that they had played, granted some pretty good teams with the exception of Edinburgh High, Mackay's defense was exploited in those games and really struggled to get anything going. And they've talked about how they're trying to find an identity, have a lot of new pieces, have a lot of young players. And man, I'm concerned about these guys now because you can't really afford to lose a game like this, given that the playoff race is looking like it's going to be pretty competitive and that it looks like it's going to be hard for you to beat McAllen Memorial and it's going to be hard for you to beat LaFollette.
Yep.
So now you're looking at 3 losses in the district already, and you have a game against Roe this week where Roe got blown out by McAllen Memorial this week, 70-21. They didn't get any stops against McAllen Memorial, not a single one. But that game can go either way at this point, right? I don't know what to make.
It could, and you're going to cover that game, aren't you?
I certainly hope to. I need to figure out what's going on with both of these guys. I'd like to see them in person and get something going.
And we'll touch on that game next week once we know what games we're covering. But just looking at McAllen Memorial, Mac High, they're 1-1. They beat Mission, lost to La Jolla. You got Roe, as we just mentioned. That's at home, at Juarez Lincoln, against Memorial, and then at Palmview. And so
they could. I mean, we would right now project that they're going to lose the last 2 games.
Just based on what we've seen. So I mean, they could go at best. They're going to go 500, which in this district that could get you a playoff spot. But again, it's not. This team was supposed to do better than just get like the 4th or 3rd playoff seed. This team is supposed to go 2 rounds deeper.
Before the year, I thought they were going to be top 10 all year long.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure. I felt like I was too low on them coming into the season, and then that quickly changed. I don't know. I really got to try to watch some. I got to try to find some game film. I got to try to find some. I got to get in some stats. I got to try to figure out what's going on here because I didn't see this coming at all. I don't like when that happens. When I get completely caught off guard like that. It makes me uncomfortable, John.
Talked about 31-5A. In terms of 32-5A, things were pretty much about the way we thought they would be. Donna won, Ed Couch won, Mercedes won, and then PHA Southwest won. The 4 teams that we think are going to be playoff teams. They all won their games. Nothing really interesting from that district, although
none of them are particularly close. It looks
none of them are particularly close as well. But you look at next week, you get some better matchups. You get Mercedes Donna. That's a possible game of the week candidate. That'll be announced Monday whether or not what the game of the week is going to be for the monitor.
Dennis is really high on PSJ Southwest playing against Porter just because he thinks that one could have playoff implications.
It could. So we'll see.
Some interesting games in this district.
But with 32-5A, the first part of the district season was your haves versus your have-nots. Now as things are progressing, you're getting a bit more of your potential playoff implications. Yeah, so 32-5A we'll talk about a bit more next week. And 31-6A, you want to talk about my district, I guess?
Yeah, man, where do you want to start? What game did you covered a Thursday game?
I covered a Thursday game. I covered West Lacoste at PHA Memorial. Instead of calling it a game, let's call it the Cito Rojas show.
Okay.
He had 4 touchdowns. He ran for 201 yards. He had a 75-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He did everything for them offensively. And Emilio Tamez, I should say, their senior running back, he went down in the first quarter, not before he got a 56-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game for them.
That's not bad.
But he went down with the right ankle injury, and then Cito was the next guy up, and PHA Memorial could not stop him. It was just 2 of his touchdown runs were in excess of 50 yards. I mean, there was just big play after big play after big play.
Right.
West Lacoste looks really, really good. I think they're going to finish second in this district now. And the more you look at West Lacoste High versus West Lacoste, that's going to be probably the game of the year that at least I covered.
That sounds about right to me. I think that's the way that I came away kind of feeling from this, is that West Lacoste looks like the clear number 2.
Yeah.
And I think West Lacoste High is pretty comfortably number 1.
Right, yeah, and West Lacoste High, they beat Edinburgh High this week, 51-6. Everyone kind of thought West Lacoste High would take care of business there. I thought PHA Memorial might play West Lacoste a bit closer because West Lacoste last week only beat Edinburgh North by 4. Edinburgh North is a team that likes to pass the ball a lot. PHA Memorial is the number 1 passing team in this district because they can't run the ball. I thought Mike Gonzalez was going to be able to, do some work there. They did get PHA Memorial. They only scored 12 points, but they did have more than 300 yards passing. It's just as the field got shorter, West Lacoste's defense got tighter and more stout, and they just shut people down. And Memorial had a bunch of drop passes as well. And again, their running game, they can't run the ball. They can't run the ball at all.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. If they had a running game that was even half as good as their passing game, they'd be a lot more of a well-rounded team. But when you're that one-dimensional, and I saw it all night, West Lacoste, they sent extra guys all night, and they kept Mike Gonzalez Memorial's quarterback just keeping plays alive with his feet. He couldn't stay in the pocket for too long. And it was So yeah, props to West Lacoste for getting that win. What else was there? Econ had a bye. They were scouting West Lacoste because they play them next week. That's
Well, there was a game that we had our eye on in terms of we didn't know what to expect from PSG.
Yes, PSG North, Edinburgh North. This game looked kind of, on paper, you had 2 1-4 teams going against each other. Granted, they played tough non-district schedules. But, with PSG North, who knew what to make of this game because, George Olivares, their senior quarterback, just left the team Monday.
Right.
And so how are they going to respond? And it looks like business as usual. PSG North on the season, they total about 450 yards a game of offense. They score 41 points. And in this game, they had over 500 yards of offense, and they scored 42 points. Brandon Villarreal, their receiver/running back, he had over 300 yards rushing in this game. He went off. Darren Fuentes, their quarterback, who's taking the place of Olivares, he was 4 of 9 when he passed, had about 80 yards and 1 interception. But in terms of running the ball, he still had about 80 yards. I think he had about 150 yards of total offense for them. And,
right.
More impressive also is the defense, held to 25 points. That's their best defensive performance by far this season. With PSG North, they normally, the joke is with them, they have to score 40 points a game because they give up 40 points a game.
Right.
I thought that the defense would struggle in this game because PSG North, they don't, at least on the defense, they don't have a lot of size. And I saw them play Brownsville Vets, a big physical team, and they pushed them around all game long. I thought Edinburgh North would do that here. No going. Edinburgh North, talking to Coach Stein at the beginning of the season, he's like, we had an up and down team last year because we were young. Guys were still trying to get their feet underneath them. And this year, it's still an up and down team. The defense gives up big play after big play after big play.
Right.
They gave up a bunch of big plays to Westlake East. They gave up a bunch of big plays to PSG North, the Cal Memorial. They get gashed. I still think PSG North is a playoff contender in this district, but they got to find some answers on defense because you can't keep giving up big play after big play every week because their offense, they can score, but let's make an NFL comparison here. I think Edinburgh North's offense is kind of like the Baltimore Ravens offense, right? They can score, but a lot has to go right for them because they don't necessarily have that big playmaker that can, go over the top for a lot of plays.
Right.
So that's my takeaway from here. But yeah, props to PSG North. Looks like business as usual for them. I think at the beginning of the season, I had them pegged number 2. I still think they're number 3 in this district. So it looks like Edinburgh North Econ is probably going to be the battle for the 4 seed here. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. So
yeah, it sounds like a pretty good one. Do you know if you're going to be able to cover that or not?
What game?
The one you just mentioned that's going to be
Edinburgh North versus Econ?
Yeah. Oh, is that
that's later in the
season.
Right. I don't have to worry about that. Next week, Wesco High has a bye. Econ plays Wesco East. PSG North plays PSG Memorial. Edinburgh North plays Edinburgh High. That's my district next week.
Gotcha.
So, anything else?
Have you given any thought to your top 10?
Have you given any thought to my top 10? I think my top 5 are pretty much going to stay the same. You got Memorial, Vela, Harlingen, Los Fresnos, and Mac High. I think those are probably the 5. Not Mac High, excuse me. Wesco High is number 5. Those are my top 5.
Mac High, LOL.
No, Mac High's, Wesco High. Number 6, the 6 or 10, it just kind of all depends. Probably Brownsville Vets, they got the win this week. Sherilyn's going to be in there somewhere. Wesco East is going to be in there somewhere. I don't know if Rome is still in there anymore. I give San Benito the benefit of the doubt because they only lost by a touchdown against a good team. But my top 5 stay the same. Like I said, that's what I try to get right most often. 6 through 10, it's just kind of just what I'm feeling at the moment.
What I'm sort of battling now is whether I want to rank Roma based on what I think about this Espinoza injury or if I want to sort of disregard that one. Like how much do I want to weigh potentially could he be gone, could he not be there, versus if he is there and their body of work overall, do I want to factor that in or not? Because I could very easily put Palmview back in at the 10 spot, knock Roma out for a week, especially coming off a loss.
I think Wesleco East is better than Palmview.
Yeah,
I think Wesleco East has a. I know who Wesleco East are, and we know who Palmview is. I just think I've seen them so many times. Not so many times. I've seen them play twice, and they look like they know what they are.
Well, you know what? After this week, they'll have a common opponent, and that'll help a little bit too. They'll both have played La Jolla High. Although it'll be hard for Palmview to top Wesleco East 52-0.
Yeah, 52-0 win. So, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It looks like I'm going to slide Wesleco East in and knock Roma out, and otherwise not a lot changed. I mean, the teams won that were supposed to win. I moved Mission Veterans up a couple spots, but. Yeah, that's about the only shift.
Ricky956 doesn't agree with it. Granted, I haven't seen Palmview play, but I think Wesleco East looks really, really good.
It's going to be 2 teams that really want to run the ball against each other. That'd be an interesting game to watch. I wish it was actually happening.
Wesleco East versus Palmview?
Right.
Oh, I would take Wesleco East in that one. Maybe it's just because I'm more familiar with them. I think Palmview's still a playoff team in their district, but if it's
Wesleco East only has 1 loss and it's to a top 10 team.
Yeah, it was in San Benito, and I mean they took care of business against La Jolla High. they've beat the team they're supposed to beat by a wide margin,
Right.
and then they lost to a good team at the beginning of the season when they had a couple guys injured. So, yeah, I think
as good as Palmview looks this week, I guess they're still number 11.
Yeah, Weslaco East is really, really good. Weslaco East is really, really good. Enough about that, though. Let's talk about some small schools that played this week in terms of non-district games. I don't see anything here on the sheet in front of me, but let's go on.
Maybe they didn't make the cut for the sheet. We can scroll down our scoreboard.
Let's go on the website and look at this real quick.
I have it here. Let me see what I can find. Well, Sitton beat Raymondville
Sitton did beat Raymondville.
pretty decidedly. What else we got?
Wyford beat Hidalgo.
Oh, poor Duty.
Poor Duty. Well, he's taking over a young team. Monte Alto has no problem against Marine Military Academy, 44-0.
I think that's it.
And that's about it.
Quiet week for those guys.
Yeah, quiet week for the small teams. They begin district play next week, so we'll see what happens there. With that, do we have a show? I think we got a show.
I think we did it.
Keep in mind, 1 minute away from kickoff, Harlingen versus Hannah. I believe Andrew Crum is covering that game on Twitter. If you want to follow him, it's at Andrew M. Crum. He'll have updates throughout the night to keep you posted on that. So other than that, we're both taking Harlingen in that game, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so all right. After that, I think we got a show, do we not?
I would say that we do.
I think we do. It's been a good week 6. We learned some things along the way. We're going to learn some more things next week in RGV Week 7. Only 5 games left, and then it's the postseason.
Yeah, insane.
Football season goes by so quick, and then it's hoop season. Ball is life.
Can you stop with the stupid preseason and
Ball is life.
other
Greg.
garbage?
No, Greg, I can't. Ball is life. You don't understand that because you should understand that. So you're from UConn. That's
Ball is life.
That's basketball country. The Huskies, man.
Right, it is. But come on.
Ball is life.
You got to know your audience.
Ball is life. Anyways. All right, guys. We appreciate it nonetheless. Thanks for checking out this episode of the RGVSports.com podcast. Find us on Facebook, RGVSports.com. We're on Twitter, at RGVSports. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes and get it sent straight to your smartphone or your tablet device. Just go to the podcast app, search RGVSports.com. It'll pop right up. Thanks for listening on the Periscope. If you're watching or on the YouTube replay, we greatly appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Get ready for RGV Week 7.